Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Side Podcast. I'm here today with Scott Hayman, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Hammer Creative, and he's been instrumental in their growth. A veteran of over 20 years in this space. Thanks for being here, Scott. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Yeah, man. So what I'd like to start in on is if you could just explain to the listeners who may not be aware of Hammer Creative, what you guys actually do over there.
Yeah, at a basic level, Hammer Creative is a creative agency. The industry that we serve is the video game industry primarily, and really the video game playing audience. We're experts in the audience that plays video games, which is a broad one, obviously. We offer full campaign work. So that's, I think, what we're known for, is bringing games to market and finding the heart of what makes a game tick and radiating that outwards to audiences. We're also really strong on the social content side. So we have expertise in producing content for TikTok and Reels, 9x16 platforms. So we have a number of relationships with publishers in which we are doing ongoing content creation for their TikTok channels, and we're tasked with growing their following and growing their engagement rates, and that's a lot of fun too. And most of our audience now lives on TikTok. They live on Instagram, and so we're meeting them where they are, and it's important for us to be able to produce content that resonates in those different mediums. Because they're really specific and they have a really sort of specific aesthetic. The audience expects a certain type of content, and we know how to produce content that hits those audiences well.
Yeah, is any of that tapping into influencers and any of that with these different social platforms?
Sure. I mean, we would never position ourselves as an influencer agency, but we have done work certainly that involves influencers. We did a campaign for Alan Wake 2. Where influencers were a part of that, and sourcing content from the community was part of that. Really what our strength is producing great content for those mediums. Most of it is gameplay based, but we have strong capabilities in producing animation, motion graphics, cinemagraphs, live action, when that works with whatever product that we're working with. So it's a wide variety of stuff, but it's a volume play, but we're really always focused on quality as well. It can't just be volume. It can't just be quantity. Quality's got to come from it too. Otherwise, the audience is going to tune out.
Yeah. How does it all start? Maybe you could walk me through a little bit. I talk to people in creative agency space all the time, but sometimes I still don't I can't feel what it's like to be inside of the agency. Even when I hear all the stories, it's what I don't always understand is where, just maybe you can walk me through where it begins, from the very first point of contact with the client. If you're reaching out to them, if they're reaching out to you, what does that sort of look like?
Sure. So, I mean, look, we've been in business and serving the games industry for 2 decades now, as you mentioned. So the vast majority of our business is coming through people that have worked with us in the past, or, hey, my friend worked with you in the past and gave me your name and suggested you guys. So it's not to say that we're not out there doing active business development and forging new relationships and finding people in different places. But the vast majority of our business is generated from having done great work for them in the past and having forged a good relationship yet. So most of the time, the calls come into us. We're getting contacted well before the game is coming to market, which means it's not, we don't even know that it exists until they call us, basically, right? So,
yeah.
We'll frequently get contacted 2 years before a game is ready to come to market, and probably close to a year before they're even ready to announce it to the public.
Do you get to play it? Are you able to are you getting that first
dibs
on it?
Absolutely. I mean, in the best case scenario, they're sending us the game as soon as it's ready to be played in any capacity. When a game is 2 years from coming to market, it's rarely in a complete state, in a great state to play through, but certainly there's usually what they call a vertical slice or some sort of, demo level that gives you an idea of what the game is going to look and feel and play like, across however long the game is slated to be, a 15-hour game, 25-hour game, 30-hour game. or beyond. So yeah, typically there's something for us to play through. It's just not the game that you're going to end up playing when it's
Yeah.
in the market.
I imagine you still have to keep a pretty lock and seal, right? That's a lot of responsibility, huh?
Yeah, security is really important when you're working on pre-release software. So, I'm broadcasting to you live from my home today, which is my default setting of where I work, but our game capture team that's handling these builds and our creatives that are working with these game builds, they're going into our office space that's located over there by Universal Studios, and then that's where we keep it under lock and key. We moved into that space a couple of years ago. One of the
I
big
said
reasons.
lock and seal. I need to correct my euphemism. But yeah, sorry. That totally.
We built that space so that it could be as secure as possible. Every room has key card entry, a key fob card entry to it, and space is alarmed and cameras everywhere. You can't walk in our space without being on camera, basically.
I'm
So
not sneaking in and playing, Scott. You don't have to worry about me, buddy.
no, don't. You're not going to be. Not going to happen.
Right on. Well, I guess that's a different subject, but I just recently, I mean, it's still in the game subject, but recently I bought one of those. It's like you could attach it to your TV and it gives you like thousands of old school games to play.
Sure.
And I've
Mm-hmm.
been kind of nerding out on some of those things, which has been pretty fun. Little Battletoads action, little Super Mario 3 and some of those old games. They don't have the playability that they did in their time when you actually had it. It's a little like wonky with the like standard PS1 like battery powered like kind of a plastic kind of cheap paddle. But it's like a time where playing some of those games, I'm really enjoying it.
There's still demand for that type of game, and it's not even just from people of our advanced age that are interested in playing those games. Obviously, for us growing up playing those games, there's a total nostalgia rush from. Oh my God, I can't remember. I can't believe I forgot about this game. I forgot this existed. I played the heck out of this when I was a kid. But there's certainly a lot of the games today are very complex, and I think that there's a
Yeah.
simplicity to some of those games that are really interesting. And it's also like a lot of games today require a huge time commitment. I just mentioned
Yep.
15 hours long, 25 hours long, some that are 80 hours long, 100 hours long, or unlimited, really. And I think there's certainly a time and a place for a game that only takes a couple of hours to play and complete and be a solid
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, I also like, for me and playing games, I really like to play with like another person next to me. Like just like when I was a kid playing like Madden or even like earlier on like regular NES games, I remember playing like there was a game called Caveman Games, which was like absolutely ridiculous. You'd be like lighting a fire and then you'd have to like blow on it to get the flame and then you would win. And basically like the winner would be whoever could like push the button the fastest. And we would be playing this thing all day, just like hammering on the different buttons until our fingers were like in pain. But it was so much fun. We would just play and laugh and have a great time. But I really liked that was, a very like interactive thing I could do with another human with me. And like a lot of the games that I've, we got like the new PlayStation, and of course my kids play the Switch. Yeah, the games are a lot more involved, and sometimes I don't even understand it. I'm like, how can a kid even play this thing? This is like over my head. My kids do better at it than I do, of course, but it also seems more a lot of the game. Maybe it's just the games that we're getting, but they feel more like independent, or they could be played like online. Maybe there's somebody around you, but like that whole like sitting right next to you. Sometimes that feels like that's been lost a little
Yeah,
bit.
let me give you some game industry jargon. What you're talking about is couch co-op, basically.
Oh, interesting.
You
I like
like
that.
there are not that many games anymore that do that, that have that dynamic. And it's funny, my kids will say I'm playing games with a friend. I'm like, why don't you invite them over? And they're like, because it's better and easier if they're at home on their console and I'm at home on my console and we're connecting online. And
Hmm.
game doesn't set up for couch co-op to split screen it, and for us to both play on the same screen, we kind of both need our own screens. So
That
it's
makes
kind of an
sense.
interesting dynamic that has, online, certainly in many ways, online gaming is amazing. What an incredible concept that you could play Madden against a friend from, you
Yeah,
know, that lives 2,000 miles away. That's like, that would have absolutely blown my mind when I was my kid's age that would ever be a possibility. But it
yeah.
has kind of robbed the industry a little bit of the priority to have games where you can actually sit in the same room and play them together.
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
They
I
do
guess
exist.
I'm,
There are games that exist. So the
yeah,
Lego,
they're still there.
a lot of the Lego games have that, which is great. There's a game called A Way Out that has that. It was really fun. Me and my son played that one together, and so it's not like they don't exist. It's just that they're fewer and further between now.
Yeah, couch co-op. I gotta remember that one. But yeah, that's really interesting. But yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent when we were talking about sort of how the work kind of comes to you, and obviously you're mentioning that that it comes pretty organically to you guys at this point because you've been in the game for so long. You're putting out really outstanding work, and we talked about some of the security parts of things,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is also interesting until I went into my big rant about how I how I like to sit next to my friends when I play these games. But what's it look like next? Like, what does does the client present you with? Like, what sort of is next once you've got that game and you're demoing it?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of it depends on where they're at internally and what they're asking us to do. So there's basically two scenarios in which people approach us. Number one is, hey, I'm bringing you this project or this campaign, and I want you guys to work on it. Great. We'll sit down with them, we'll get a briefing on what the game is, and then we'll find out where they're at internally from in terms of creating like a go-to-market strategy. And sometimes, we have clients that come to us that have a really robust internal strategy department. Maybe they've even created a logo already or some key art or some sort of visual identity, and that's the starting point that they're giving us. Other times it's, here's the game, we've done nothing, help us identify who our audience is, where they live, and what should our campaign look and feel like, and create a brand identity for this game. So, it just really depends on the engagement. We are a flexible agency. We love opportunities where people bring us a game and say, what should we do? That's a cool scenario. It's also, it's also a daunting scenario because there's a lot to explore and there's a lot to figure out, and we have to kind of gut check people. So, but in pretty much all cases, we love the opportunity to be able to meet with the developer themselves, the developer of the game, really get an understanding of the game that they set out to make, why they wanted to make it, what they think is cool about the game, what's unique about the game. The more we understand about their motivations, the more we're able to figure out what to lean into with our campaign.
Yeah.
And it's
Which
really,
point of contact would it be at the developer? Like the top person or like their
yeah, I mean, it's a crew of people, that we would like, what we like to, we basically like to interview, for lack of a better way to put it, the development team. So it starts with, maybe the studio has a general manager, whoever came up with the whole concept for the game is someone to talk to, the art director, creative director, technical director. There's so much stuff going on under the hood, especially for modern games now, where they're putting so much emphasis technically into certain things like lighting and shading and water effects, the way characters move and the way they animate, the way NPCs interact with people. There's so much technology under the hood, and a lot of that stuff is what I probably Hollywood would refer to as invisible effects. They're doing amazing special effects work in a lot of movies that you don't even notice because it's so real looking that you would just think they shot that practically. A lot of that's going on in the games industry too, but it's good for us to know, hey, this is a huge priority. This technical thing that we did over here, the AI of the NPCs, non-player characters, for those who are not so inclined with that acronym, the amount of time and energy that we put into making those NPCs smart and reactive was huge for this game, and it was a really big cornerstone of what we did. And it's not necessarily that we would create a marketing beat that would talk strictly about that, but we would want to try to make sure that our team understands that this was a motivation. This was important to the development team. They spent a lot of time on this particular aspect of how they built the game. They spent a lot of money developing technology, and we want to make sure that our campaign actually speaks to that in some capacity. So it's really important for us to know the developer, know their motivations. It's also important, obviously, for us to know what the marketing department is thinking too. The development team and the marketing team are not always 100% on the same page with each other about what makes sense and how we're going to bring a game to market. And I think that's a healthy tension. It's an important tension to have. The advertising people are experts in advertising, and the game development people are experts in game development. And when those two things can intersect and those two different entities can really respect the expertise of the other one, that's when you start to really make some good magic there. So, we've never had a good campaign where there's not a great partnership going on there between, publisher and developer.
Yeah. What are some? I mean, I've looked at your stuff before, but maybe you can tell us what are some of the developers you typically have worked with?
Yeah, I mean, we work mainly for publishers, not developers. Obviously,
Yeah,
developers
that's
are a huge part of what we do. So again, if you want me to put it in movie terms, I mean, there's the movie producers themselves, the production companies, and then there's the distributors, right? So we work for we typically work for the game publishers, which is like, the distributors in movies. So, the main companies that we work for right now are Epic. We do a lot of work on Fortnite. Um, we've been working for Bethesda for a long time now. Bethesda is now owned by Microsoft. We've worked on a huge chunk of their major releases over the last 5 years, if not the majority of them. We work with Microsoft. We work on Forza Horizon and Forza Motorsport, and we're talking to them about expanding that relationship and working on other properties for them. We're doing some work for 2K right now. So and there's a ton of other publishers that we work for. We do work with PlayOn, we do work with Tripwire, and I know on Riot, we do a bunch of work with Riot. We've worked in the past on League of Legends, and we work on Legends of Runeterra. So we made a really concerted effort to get as diversified as possible over the last 5 years.
Do you ever get reached out to by smaller like outfits that are, more on the indie side?
Definitely, that definitely happens. Let me start this answer over.
Choose your words carefully, Scott.
So yes, we definitely talk to indie developers, indie studios. They're typically not looking to work on the scale that we're accustomed to working with in terms of building full campaigns. They typically, if they come to us, they want something for an internal presentation. Perhaps they need a single asset produced for them. We love working on that kind of stuff. Our team loves working on indie games when they get the opportunity to do so. Our staff loves playing indie games, so that's why they like to work on them. So it's great when we have that opportunity to do so. It's challenging for indies though, because they don't typically have much of a marketing department. They don't really have people that are experienced in bringing games to market. So what we definitely have had opportunities to work with companies that don't have a robust marketing department, and they hire us as an extension of their team, basically to be their marketing department for them. And those are always really fun opportunities when we get that chance. But the vast majority of the work that we do is with some of the big publishers that I just rattled off before that have, really robust and established and very experienced marketing and publicity teams.
Yeah, no, that totally makes a lot of sense. When you're talking about key art, I know key art is print. Can you explain what that actually looks like? Like what is the key art asset that you are delivering?
Well, there are still physical copies of games that you can buy in stores, and so they need to go into a box, and we'll create the artwork that goes in those boxes. But a lot lately for the games industry, we're thinking about what does it look like on a digital storefront. Especially if you're working on a mobile title, which we do. The majority of our work is not in the mobile space, but when we do work in the mobile space, it's important to think about how people are digesting and interacting with mobile content and how they're going to purchase mobile content. And usually it's going to be through a digital storefront on their phone, basically. So developing app store icons, developing, banner ads and stuff like that. So, but a lot of it, a lot of the way we think when it comes to developing the brand's identity, the brand's visual identity, a lot of it now is we're really considering what it looks like in a digital storefront world.
Yeah. So that's the main place there. Are there any other places besides the App Store that people are buying games for that these assets are going towards?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will buy them through their consoles,
Yep.
or via if you're a PC gamer, you'll buy it via Steam or the Epic Game Store, storefronts like that. But those are all digital marketplaces. PlayStation has its own digital marketplace. Xbox has its own digital marketplace. So does Nintendo. So it's not dissimilar from the way, you interact with downloading an app from the App Store on your iPhone. Basically, they all kind of have their own digital storefronts.
Yeah.
And again, the physical there are still lots of people that like to buy their games physical. They want to have that tangible asset. They want to have that disc. They don't want to be beholden to a game suddenly evaporating off of a digital storefront, and therefore they can't play it anymore. And so they want that physical copy. So that's
They'd rather
still,
be like me, like searching through all the different games because all the different they're all in the wrong packages. And I'm just like looking all through, trying to find out which game belongs to which one. No,
yeah.
it's not Kirby. This is this destroying my
I was
life over here.
I certainly was happy to embrace the digital storefront era. Myself, I hate clutter and I don't like having a lot of stuff around.
Yeah.
So it
Yep.
works out well for me, but I completely understand the audience that still wants to buy games.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So you've walked me through a lot of it, which is exciting so far. So I'm getting the picture now of how the client has reached out to you. You've been speaking with the developer. You have these different assets that they're looking to have you guys create and deliver. But then the next step is probably you need to brief your team on the needs. Is that sort of what comes next?
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
just
once
guessing.
yeah, usually the team that is going to pitch or is going to develop what this brand is going to be will be involved in that whole interview process. So when we get briefed, we usually have our team together at that point, which consists of anything ranging from our creative directors and writers, our art team, art directors, designers, and then certainly, whoever's going to lead the charge on a game capture, which is a huge part of any campaign that we're doing for a video game. Is we got to be able to show the game in its best light. So whoever's going to be our game capture director is usually involved in that process.
And not to keep double clicking on everything you're saying and being annoying because I can be that guy. But
Right.
when I also I think it might be an interesting point for people that because the point of this show is I'm really looking to speak to people on all different walks of agency life. So people that are in gaming or influencer or in just social digital or just print or brand, basically every walk. So I imagine maybe somebody who is coming from the brand side or something doesn't have any experience in game, and they're like, "Oh, this is kind of cool, having this interesting conversation. What the heck is game capture?" And when I think of it, I think of it's like it's photography. Am I correct? It's sort of like a similar vertical. How does that work within Hammer?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, I think we have over 30 people dedicated to the art of game capture that all report to not 100% of them report to our office in Toluca there by Universal Studios, but the vast majority do. I've had Justin go out and try to find game capture artists for us in the past. They're honestly unicorns. It's a really strange profession in that there's just, in the entire world, how many people can really say that they are a professional game capture artist with years of experience. And but that's exactly what we're looking for. And that's exactly what we need. So yes, I mean, it's basically performing a shoot in a digital environment. We get the game, we get special camera controls within the game most times, not always. Sometimes we're working within the same consumer facing game build that you're playing at home basically. But for the most part, we typically get access to camera controls in which one control is controlling the camera and the other control is controlling the player. So, but we're shooting all this footage within that universe, within their digital universe, basically, and we're just trying to make the game look and play its best. And it's a combination of having people who have film production background and directors of photography, as well as people who are really technically savvy with how to get around the technical glitches that unfortunately, plague work in progress software. There's just kind of no way around that. And any game that you're building, no matter how great it is, when it's 6 months away from release, it's going to have some technical issues, and getting it to bend to your will is really important. And then, you also have to have an affinity for gaming. There are games that we work on that are first person shooters, and the big objective is the footage needs to be aspirational, and that like the person who is playing this game needs to be a badass first person shooter and look really great doing these runs through an environment where they're taking out their targets first person. So
Basically just so I have a clear understanding. So the game is being played and you're kind of recording that player. So that player needs to be a good player because you're trying to show like how cool this game is when that person, yeah.
Yeah,
So
we
yeah.
want to show somebody like me playing a first person shooter who's at it. Like that's not gonna get an audience excited. What's gonna
Yeah.
get an audience excited is seeing somebody executing a cool run through an environment in a first person shooter in the coolest and best and most badass way possible.
So it's a two-person job at once, so one person's playing, the other person's like recording it and screenshotting or doing
Yeah,
stuff like that.
a lot of times it is, and then it can get way more complex than that when we're working on multiplayer games. You know, we could have a crew of 10 or even 20 people working on a single shot. You know, we got the players are actors, and we have a director who is moving the camera through an environment that is being, you know, doesn't again to say invisible effects. We don't want the gameplay to look choreographed, but it is
Yeah.
choreographed. We are trying to, you know, we're very intentional about every frame of the shot that we're making looking really great and looking flaw free and looking amazing. You know, we don't want to have one character is kind of running around in the corner doing something weird, it ruins the whole shot, right?
And
So
are
it
you
is
able to, by this time, do you have the full-on game to work with, or are you still only working with the demo to create the assets?
it just it depends, you know. I mean, by 6 months out from a game, the game is pretty much content complete, and now they're just crushing bugs and making improvements, right? They're just, you know, just trying to get the game ready for market at that point. For 12 months out, there could be much bigger hurdles. There might be full on missing levels. There could be artwork that's not even in, you know, incorporated in the environment yet. It's still like all kind of gray box and wireframey looking. So, you know, obviously we would not want to shoot in an area that looks like that. So, you know, just like a shoot, you know, we basically, before we start a project, we have, you know, what's essentially like a location scout go flying through the game and saying, this looks good. This looks like be a good environment for us to shoot in. This looks ready to go. This part over here is not quite ready. It's missing artwork. The characters are in T poses in this area, and, you know, we can't really shoot over here. So there's a huge process when we embark on creating any sort of gameplay asset to plan that all out. And it's the same way as you would a film shoot. You know, there's a whole plan that we have to put in place so
It's
that we don't wait.
fascinating because it's like you're capturing like a world within a world. It's like a real, that's pretty, it's pretty
It's just doing a
remarkable.
shoot in a different environment, basically. And a lot of the disciplines that apply to doing a live action shoot or producing CG animation apply to how we, you know, work on game capture. So
Yeah.
that's why it is hard to find game capture artists, because you're looking for this blend, this really crazy blend of skills, which is, you know, film production, or, you know, having an understanding of how to construct a shot, how to
Yep.
tell a story with a single shot, basically. And you're looking for someone who loves games and knows how to play games at a really high level, and or at a minimum has a really good eye for what looks good in a game. So yeah,
It's interesting because the people that I've spoken to over the years that are in capture, it's one of those jobs. It's kind of like a recruiter where it's like most people seem like they've just fallen into it. Like they didn't go on a mission for it. Like they've either been like a musician or, and they, you know, started, you know, as an intern or a production person. Maybe they had a background in photography or some sort of adjacent thing, and they sort of just kind of found they had an affinity for it and worked their way up. I haven't found too many people that were like straight out of school that's like, I'm going to be a game capture director. It's an interesting thing, but the people that do it, they really love doing it. And when I talk to them, they seem like they really can geek out and they get excited by really good capture, and they know what it looks like.
if people don't know it exists as a profession, and it's been a challenge for us certainly to try to broadcast that out to people who are graduating college and moving into the workforce. Like, this is actually a career. You can make a career doing this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's why we've really gone all in on creating a extremely robust mentorship program internally. We're really focused on, certainly we will hit, you know, we'll hit Justin Levinson up and say, do you know, but we really have come to realize that in order to have a game capture department that is firing on all cylinders and is future proof, we have to create the next generation of gameplay capture artists ourselves. So
Yeah.
mentorship is huge. We think it's a really good selling point for anyone that wants to come work for us, that you're not just going to come in here and sink or swim based on your own skill. You're going to have a lot of people around you that have a lot of experience. They're going to help you get up to the next level. And, you know, a lot of people that work in game capture end up parlaying that into lateral moves in the other areas. We've had people move into becoming creative directors or writers that way. We've had people move into becoming editors via game capture. It's a really great place to start. It's also a great place to end a career. You can absolutely ride being a gameplay capture artist and director all the way up to a really lucrative and awesome full career. But it's because it is the lifeblood of the majority of the content that we create. It's a great foundational place to start your career if you have an interest in branching off into other areas. If you understand gameplay capture at a deep level, you're, as a creative director, going to be able to know how to put a concept together better. As a writer, you're going to be able to know like how to write something that's realistic. We've run into many times where we hire writers outside of the games industry. They come up with a really cool concept that's really fun, it's awesome, great copy lines, great tagline, but it's actually not grounded in the reality of what we can actually produce content wise. And so that concept becomes kind of useless when they do that, right? So
Yeah.
it is a great place, certainly as an entry level position, but it can also be your final destination, and that's what's kind of fascinating about game capture.
Yeah, I've definitely had people over the years ask me like, we're looking for a creative director who can lead creative on game trailers that comes from a game capture background. Like they know that, or maybe they've done editorial as well, but specifically looking for that, or maybe they're looking for someone that specifically comes from a copy background. But it's interesting how there's like, you know, how that can be sort of like how you rose to the ranks can really be advantageous to, when you hit like that director level, it's kind of cool.
It's unique. It's a really, really unique profession. It's a really cool one. People are like, say to our capture artists, so you get to play video games all day? It's like, no, that is not what they're doing. They are not playing video games. They're shooting. They're shooting footage all day, and it is not playing video games all day. I promise you that is not what they're doing.
Yeah, and they do have to probably play some. How do you know who's going to be good at that game to get those good shots and stuff? Is it one of the capture artists? Are they practicing playing it before you guys go into shoot, or like how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain games that automatically, like, look, we like when projects come in the door, we love to be able to give people who are super interested in that game personally the opportunity to work on it. So we have certain people on our staff that love Japanese RPGs. If we get a Japanese RPG into the studio to work on, of course, we're going to want to give that project to the person with the affinity. They're going to give their all and they're going to give their best effort on it. And they're going to want to make sure that we're promoting that product in its best light, right?
Yeah.
Other people are great at first-person shooters. They love first-person shooters. So, we kind of have specialists across a lot of different disciplines. So, I don't know if I'm answering your question right now, but
Yeah, no, totally.
the long story short is, project comes in the door, we're always going to evaluate who has an affinity, who knows the background of this game. Like we're working on a JRPG right now that is so deep lore wise that I think it would be very, very difficult for you to try to get to expert level on all of the lore basically. But we have people internally that totally know the franchise, and like their starting point is it's a starting point that you or me probably couldn't
Yeah.
get to as non-JRPGs basically. So, we're always going to like look for our experts, look for the people that have affinity. And now, like I mentioned, we got like 30 people in game capture alone right now. So, across 30 people who are all a bunch of gamers, you're going to find an expert on anything that comes through the door.
That's cool. I know in this conversation, I've spent the majority of my time walking through what the whole process looks like, but a lot because I just find it really interesting too. A lot of the point of the podcast too is I'm trying to learn more from industry leaders so I can offer more intelligent conversation when I'm working too and really know what people are doing. So it's an educational process for me as well with sharing information with other people that might be looking for a job or starting their own company. So this is all just really interesting for me personally. But I guess in terms of the sequence of the order of operations here, let's for sake of time, let's say you've delivered your assets and you've got them to the publisher, everybody's really excited, and now they're going out. Is there anything further that you guys are you dealing with any metrics or changing things, fixing anything down the line? Like what does it look like after delivery?
The vast majority of the games that we work on have a long tail, meaning they're going to have DLC drops post launch, or it's a live service game that is intended to be, played for years and years to come, and they're going to constantly update with new content. But
Mm.
we're always evaluating our work, no matter what it is, even if it's a launch campaign, pre-launch, we drop a trailer, we have analytics tools that analyze the sentiment basically from consumers. They'll go through they'll combs through the comments section on YouTube and tries to pull out commonalities of what people are saying and what people are thinking about the game. A lot of times the comments on YouTube piece that we create aren't even necessarily about the trailer. They're just talking about the franchise, or, wanting to say great things about the publisher, or sometimes bad things about the publisher, because that's what the internet is basically. But
Sure.
it gives us a really real window into, every time we release something, we want to know what the public is thinking about it, so that we can course correct if necessary, or make sure we continue to lean into things that have gotten people super excited. So yeah, I mean, post launch though, it really kind of depends on the game, but the vast majority of games at this point do have post launch plans. They're going to continue to promote that game because they're going to continue to drop new content, and it's going to have a business life beyond just the launch of the game, which is again unique to today versus the games that you were referring to that earlier,
Yeah.
that you're playing on your little console that has 1,000 games on it. Those were pretty much one and done. We released a game and it's the whole market for it. And today the whole market for a game is lasts well beyond its initial release date.
Yeah. That totally makes a lot of sense. Well, Scott, I really appreciate you hopping on today and having this chat with me. And it's called Couch, what again?
Out co-op.
Couch Co-op. If you ever happen to be in the Green Mountain State and are interested in doing a little couch co-op out here, we can bust out the Madden or the Caveman games if you're interested in having some carpal tunnel, and we can make it a day.
Sounds good. I'm all about it. I'll talk to my wife and see if she's cool with me making a trip out to see you so we can play games together.
Cool, man. Well, have a great rest of your week, and yeah, man, really appreciate it again.
My pleasure. Hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy your long weekend.
Thanks, Scott. Take care, buddy.